Welcome to Coconut Tail channel.
I was finishing my emails when she put down her list of 28. 0 for her. I printed mine. 1. Ask for a divorce. She paled, then begged. What happens next will decide everything. I was sitting at the kitchen island in our suburban home finishing up some work emails on my laptop when my wife walked in with that look, you know, the one that says she has been thinking, planning, and that now is the time for me to hear what she has to say. She was holding a folded piece of paper in her hand and placed it in front of me with the kind of ceremony reserved for signing a peace treaty. We need to talk, she said, sitting in the chair across from me. I have been thinking a lot about our marriage, and I have prepared something that I think will help us. I looked at the paper, then at her. Okay, what is it? Is it a list? She replied, her tone suddenly taking on that schoolteacher quality she adopted when she thought she was being helpful. Things you need to improve to save our marriage. I put a lot of thought into this, and I think if you work on these areas, we can get back to how we used to be. I unfolded the paper and started reading. The title at the top said Areas of Improvement for Our Marriage in her neat handwriting. Below that, there was a numbered list that went on and on. Number 1, take more initiative with household chores without being asked. Number 2, be more emotionally available during conversations. Number 3, stop leaving dishes in the sink overnight. Number 4, show more appreciation for the things I do around the house. The list continued down the page. Number 7 was about my tendency to withdraw during conflicts. Number 11 criticized my lack of romantic gestures. Number 15 suggested I needed to work on my communication style. When I got to number 23, which was about how I needed to be more supportive of her goals and dreams, I realized I was looking at more than just suggestions. It was not an improvement list, it was an accusation, a complete deconstruction of everything she thought was wrong with me, packaged as helpful advice to save our marriage. I put the paper down and looked at her. She was watching me expectantly, as if she expected me to thank her for this thoughtful gift of criticism. So, she said, leaning forward slightly, what do you think? I know it might seem like a lot, but I truly think these changes could make a huge difference for us. I picked the paper back up and counted 28 points. 28 things that were apparently wrong with me and needed to be fixed. Not a single point on that list asked what she might need to work on. Not a single suggestion that maybe, just maybe, marriage was a two-way street. This is revealing, I said. And I really meant it, but not in the way she imagined. Her face lit up. I am so glad you see it that way. I was worried you might get defensive. But this is exactly the kind of open-mindedness we need. I folded the paper back up and stood up from the table. You are absolutely right. This is exactly what we needed. So, you're going to work on these things? She asked, hope creeping into her voice. Oh, I am definitely going to work on something, I replied. I need to think about it a bit, but you have given me a lot to consider. She smiled, looking pleased with herself. Take your time. I know it is a lot to take in, but I really think this could be the turning point for us. I went upstairs to my home office in our 2-story suburban house and closed the door. Then I sat at my desk and really looked at that list again. Point number 12 was about my tendency to want to be right all the time. Number 16 complained about my inflexibility. Number 21 said I needed to prioritize our relationship over work. Every point was about what I needed to change, what I needed to fix, what I needed to improve. There was no acknowledgement that she might have contributed to our problems. No acknowledgement that maybe some of these issues had two sides. No suggestion that maybe a marriage requires both people to make adjustments. This was not a conversation starter. It was a list of demands disguised as helpful suggestions. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized what it really was. It was her way of telling me that everything wrong in our marriage was my fault. And if I just became the person she wanted me to be, everything would be fine. The audacity of it was almost impressive. She had essentially handed me a personality makeover list and expected me to be grateful for the guidance. I opened my laptop and started typing. If she wanted to communicate via lists, then I could play along too. I was pretty good at making lists myself. 20 minutes later, I had my response ready. I printed it, folded it just like she had done with hers, and went downstairs. She was now in the living room watching a reality TV show on Netflix, looking pleased with herself. When she saw me coming down the stairs with my own piece of paper, she raised her eyebrows. You want to talk about the list? She asked, muting the TV. Actually, I said, I wrote my own list. I thought it might be helpful for you to see my perspective too. I handed her the folded paper and sat in the chair opposite the couch. She opened it eagerly, probably expecting to see my thoughts on her suggestions, or maybe my own areas where I thought she could improve. Instead, she found a single point under the title, My Improvement Plan. 1. Ask for a divorce. She stared at the paper for a long time, then looked up at me. Is this some kind of joke? Not at all, I said calmly. You said you wanted me to work on improving our marriage. This is my plan for improvement. This is not improving our marriage, she said, her voice rising slightly. This is ending it. Exactly, I said, and that is the improvement I think we need. The color drained from her face as she reread my list, as if hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. You cannot be serious, she said, putting the paper on the coffee table as if it might bite her. We are talking about improving our marriage, not throwing it away. I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. My improvement plan is simple. Sometimes the best way to fix something broken is to stop pretending it works. She stood up quickly, pacing to the window and back. This is ridiculous. You are being dramatic. All I did was give you some constructive feedback. Constructive feedback. I could not help but smile at that. 28 points telling me everything that is wrong with me is not constructive feedback. It is a bullet point character assassination. That is not what it was, she said, her voice becoming defensive. I was trying to help us. I was being honest about what needs to change. You are right. You were honest. Just not in the way you think. I picked up her list from the coffee table. Let me read you some of this honesty. Stop being so logical all the time and show more emotion. Learn to compromise instead of always thinking you are right. My personal favorite is number 25, work on being less stubborn. She crossed her arms. Those are legitimate concerns. Maybe they are, but here is what is interesting about your list. Every point is about what I need to change. Every problem in our marriage, according to this document, stems from my failures as a husband. You did not mention a single thing you might need to work on, not one. That is because this list was to help you see. It was to help me see that you think I am the problem. All of this, every problem we have had, every argument we have had, every moment of unhappiness in this marriage is apparently my fault. I stood up and walked over to the fireplace mantel, then turned to face her. Do you really believe that? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time since this conversation had started, she did not have an immediate answer. Here is what your list really told me. I continued. It told me that you have been keeping score for years, that you note every little thing I do that annoys you, every way I do not match up to the ideal husband you have in your head. It told me that instead of talking to me about problems when they arise, you build a case against me. I was not building a case, she protested. I was trying to be comprehensive. Same thing. Different packaging. I walked back to my chair, but did not sit down. You want to know what constructive feedback would have been? Coming to me 6 months ago and saying, hey, I feel like you do not listen to me when we talk. Can we work on that together? That is constructive. What you gave me was a performance review where I failed in every category. She was silent for a moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how to respond. Finally, she said, so, you are going to end our marriage because I pointed out a few problems. I am going to end our marriage because you do not see it as our marriage. You see it as my marriage that you are stuck in, waiting for me to become good enough for you to be happy. That is not true, is it not? When is the last time you asked yourself what you could do to contribute to our problems? When is the last time you considered that maybe some of our issues are not just due to my flaws? She sat back down on the couch, and for the first time, she looked uncertain. I really think about it because there is no evidence of that on this list. According to this, I said, holding up her paper, you are perfect and I am a disaster. If that is really how you view our marriage, then we definitely need to end it, but not for the reasons you think. You are twisting everything I said. Am I? Let us try an experiment. Name one thing you could work on to improve our marriage. Just one. She stared at me for a long time. I communicate my needs clearly, maybe too clearly. That is not naming something you could work on. That is defending something you already do and suggesting you might be too good at it. I shook my head. You literally cannot do it. You cannot name one thing you might need to change or improve. Everything is my fault. The room went silent, except for the sound of the TV, which was still muted. She was looking at her hands, and I could see her mind working. This is not how this was supposed to go, she said finally. How is it supposed to go? You were supposed to, I do not know, talk about the list, maybe disagree with some things, but then work with me on the others. We were supposed to make a plan. A plan where I change everything about myself, and you do what? Nothing. That is not what I meant. But it is what you wrote. I sat back down, keeping my voice steady. You spent time writing 28 things you want me to fix. You wrote nothing about what we could work on together. You did not suggest any problem that might be a shared responsibility. You made a list of my failures and called it couples therapy. She took my list back and stared at it. So is that it? You are really going to ask for a divorce unless you can give me a reason not to. I love you. That is not a reason. That is a feeling. And if you love someone, you do not hand them a list of everything wrong with them and call it help. She was silent again, and I could see she was really thinking for the first time in this entire conversation. I did not realize how it would sound. She said quietly, "How did you think it would sound?" Like I was being supportive and trying to make things better. I looked at her closely. Truly, you do not see how handing someone a list of their personal failures might not seem supportive? For the first time, she looked genuinely confused rather than defensive. I thought if I was specific about what needed to change, it would be easier to fix. And what about what you needed to change? I do not know, she said, and her voice was weaker now. I guess I thought I was doing my part by identifying the problems. Over the next few days, she tried everything. The morning after our conversation, I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs. She was in the kitchen, wearing this apron I had given her for Christmas 2 years ago, the one she had never used, making breakfast like a 1950s housewife. "Good morning," she said with forced cheerfulness. I figured I would make us a nice breakfast before work. I poured some coffee and sat at the table. "Thanks." She placed a plate in front of me and sat down with hers. "So, I was thinking about our conversation yesterday. Yeah, maybe we could talk about this divorce thing. I mean, surely that was just you being angry about the list, right?" I took a bite of eggs and looked at her. "Actually, I called a lawyer yesterday afternoon. I have an appointment next week." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "You actually called a lawyer?" "I told you my improvement plan was simple." "I meant it." The forced smile vanished. "You cannot make major life decisions when you are angry." "I am not angry. I am clear." I finished my coffee and stood up. "This breakfast is really good, by the way, but making me breakfast does not change the fundamental issue we talked about." She followed me to the front door as I grabbed my car keys from the hook by the garage entry. "What fundamental issue?" I said I did not realize how the list sounded. "I can work on that." "Can you?" "Because yesterday, you could not name a single thing you might need to change about yourself. Making breakfast is not the same as acknowledging that maybe you approached our marriage the wrong way." "I acknowledge it," she said quickly. "That is why I am trying to show you I care by doing things you think I want instead of actually listening to what I said." I left for work, driving my sedan through the quiet suburban streets to the office, and when I pulled into the driveway that evening, she was waiting with a different strategy. She had cleaned the house from top to bottom and had dinner ready when I walked in. "I spent the day thinking," she announced, "about what you said, about the list." I sat at the dining room table which she had set with our nice plates. "Okay, you are right that I did not think about what I might need to work on. So, I made my own list." She pulled out a piece of paper. Things I could improve. I looked at the paper. There were 3 points on it. Number 1, be more appreciative of the things you do. Number 2, do not give feedback in the form of a list. Number 3, ask how your day went more often. I put the paper down. "This is a list of ways you can be nicer to me." "It is not the same thing." "What do you mean?" "I mean you still do not see the real problem. You think the issue is that you were not nice enough when you gave me criticism. You do not see that the criticism itself was the problem." Her face darkened. "I do not understand what you want me to say. I want you to understand that marriage is not about one person fixing the other. It is about 2 people working together to solve problems together." "But there are problems," she said, "things that need to be addressed." "Of course there are problems. Every marriage has them. But when you write a list of 28 things wrong with me and 0 things that might be wrong with your approach to our marriage, you are not trying to solve problems. You are trying to manage me like I am an employee who needs a performance improvement." She was quiet through dinner, and I could tell she was thinking after we finished eating. She tried a different approach. "Okay," she said, "let us say you were right about the list. Let us say I was wrong to approach it like that. Cannot we move past it? Cannot we start over?" "Start over how?" "I do not know. Go to therapy, Talk to someone who can help us communicate better. I leaned back in my chair. You want to go to therapy so someone else can tell you how to better communicate with me? That is not what I meant. Is it not? You are still looking for someone to teach you the right technique to make me become the husband you want me to be. You are not looking at whether the husband you want me to be is reasonable or if you might have to change your expectations. The next day was Saturday, and she tried the emotional approach. I was in the garage organizing tools when she came out with tears in her eyes. I can't believe you are going to throw away 15 years of marriage over a stupid list, she said. I put down the wrench I was holding. I am not throwing away 15 years. I am acknowledging that maybe those 15 years have not been as good as we pretended. They were good. We were happy. Were we? Or were you happy when I was doing what you wanted and frustrated when I was not? She wiped her eyes. That's not fair. It's not about fairness. It's about honesty. I turned to face her completely. When was the last time we had an argument where you considered that maybe you were wrong? When was the last time you apologized for something without adding a but to explain why your behavior was justified? I apologize all the time. You say sorry. That is different from an apology. Saying sorry is to make the conflict go away. Apologizing is to acknowledge that you did something wrong. Fine, she said, her voice getting higher. I am wrong. I am terrible. I am the worst wife in the world. Is that what you want to hear? That is exactly what I do not want to hear. Because that is not an apology either. That is sarcasm designed to make me feel bad for bringing up the issue. She stared at me for a moment, then turned and went back into the house. That evening, she tried the negotiation approach. What if I throw the list away? She said, as we were getting ready for bed. What if we forget all about this? Then nothing changes. We go back to the way things were, and in 6 months or a year, you will be frustrated about the same things. Except next time, instead of a list, it will be something else. What if I promise to stop being critical? That is not sustainable, and it is not honest. If something bothers you, you should be able to bring it up. The problem is not that you have concerns. The problem is how you approach those concerns and whether you are willing to examine your own behavior too. I do not know how to do that, she admitted softly. It was the first honest thing she had said all week. I know you do not, I said. And that is exactly the problem. On Sunday evening, she was getting desperate. I could see it in the way she kept looking at me, as if she was trying to figure out what combination of words or actions would make me change my mind. The lawyer appointment is tomorrow, I reminded her as we watched TV. I know. Are you going to try to talk me out of it? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, would it work? No. Then what is the point? I looked at her carefully. The point would be to find out if you truly understand why I am doing this, or if you are just trying to avoid the consequences. I understand, she said quickly. Really? Because every conversation we have had this week has been about how to make me stay. None of them have been about whether staying would actually be good for either of us. She did not answer that. I went to the lawyer on Monday morning. His office was in one of those professional buildings in the downtown area, the kind with marble floors and elevator music. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, wearing a navy suit and the confident expression that probably cost his clients $200 an hour. So, he said after I explained the situation, you are looking at an uncontested divorce. I hope so. We do not have kids, and we both work. It should be simple. He took notes on a legal pad. Property, assets, house in both our names. We both contributed to the down payment. 2 cars, both financed, savings account, checking account, retirement accounts. Nothing complicated. How long have you been married? 15 years. He looked up from his notes. And your wife knows you are here? She knows I am filing. Whether she accepts it is another question. Understood. I will prepare the paperwork. You should have everything ready to file by the end of the week. When I got home that evening, pulling the car into the driveway, she was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and papers spread out around her. How was your day? She asked without looking up. Fine. What are you working on? Research. She turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a marriage counseling website. I found 3 therapists in our area who specialize in relationship crisis intervention. I have already called 2 of them. I sat down across from her. I told you I was filing for divorce. I know what you told me, but I also know you are not unreasonable. If I can show you that I am serious about working on things, maybe we can figure out a way through this. Working on what things? She shuffled through the papers. I printed out articles on communication and marriage, and I found this workbook on identifying destructive patterns in relationships. I looked at the stack of papers. You are approaching this like a research project. What is wrong with that? You said I need to examine my own behavior. So I am examining it by reading about it online, learning how to do better. Is not this what you want? I leaned back in my chair. What I want is for you to truly understand the problem. Not just research solutions to a problem you still do not fully grasp. Then explain it to me again. I have explained it multiple times. The problem is not that you do not have the right communication techniques. The problem is that you fundamentally do not view our marriage as a partnership between equals. She closed the laptop. That is not true. Then why are all your solutions about learning to manage me better? Why are none of them about questioning whether your expectations are reasonable? My expectations are reasonable. I expect my husband to help around the house and be emotionally present. Those are not unreasonable things. And I expect my wife to treat me like an adult instead of a project in need of constant improvement. Is that unreasonable? She did not answer immediately, which was a kind of progress. The next morning, her sister called while I was getting ready for work. I could hear her side of the conversation from the bedroom. I do not understand why he is being so dramatic. No. I gave him some feedback on our marriage, and he is acting like I attacked him. I know. Men are so sensitive. I came downstairs, and she quickly ended the call. Was that your sister? I asked. She was just checking in. Did you tell her about the list? I mentioned we were having communication issues. Did you tell her what was actually on the list? She hesitated. I told her the general idea, but not the specifics. She does not need to know every detail of our private business. Or you do not want her to know you wrote 28 criticisms of your husband and called it helpful feedback. Hey man, heard you and my sister are going through a rough patch. Want to grab a beer and talk? When I got home, I asked her about it. I did not call him, she said defensively. He called me. Word gets around. What word exactly? That we are having problems? That you are considering divorce? And what is your version of why we are having problems? She shifted uncomfortably. I told him we had a disagreement over communication styles. Communication styles. Right. Did you mention you wrote a list of everything wrong with me? That is not what the list was. That is exactly what the list was. And the fact that you cannot even describe it accurately to your own family tells me you know it was wrong. That weekend, we were supposed to go to her friend's birthday party. When Saturday rolled around, she got dressed and ready, then looked at me expectantly. Are not you getting ready? I am not going. Why not? Because I do not feel like spending the evening pretending everything is fine while you tell people we are having communication issues. So I am supposed to go alone? You are supposed to do whatever you want, but I am not going to be part of the performance. She went alone, and when she came back 3 hours later, she was upset. Everyone kept asking where you were, she said. It was embarrassing. What did you say? That you were not feeling well. So you lied? I did not want to get into our personal business. No, you did not want to explain why your husband is asking for a divorce. There is a difference. The following week, the divorce papers were ready. I brought them home and set them on the kitchen counter. The lawyer says you have 30 days to respond, I told her. She stared at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. You are really doing this? I told you I was really doing this. But I thought if I showed you I was trying to work on things. You showed me you were trying to avoid the consequences of the real problem. That is not the same thing as working on it. She picked up the papers and flipped through them. This makes it so final. That is the point. What if I contest it? Then we will spend a lot of money on lawyers and end up in the exact same place, just angrier and poorer. What if I refuse to sign? Then the divorce will take longer, but it will happen anyway. You cannot force someone to stay married to you. She set the papers down. I do not understand how we got here. We got here because you spent 15 years trying to turn me into someone else. And I finally realized I do not want to be turned into someone else. I never tried to turn you into someone else. I picked up the original list from where it was still on the counter. 28 things you want me to change. If I changed all of these, would I even be the same person you married? She looked at the list, then at me. For the first time, I saw something in her expression that looked like genuine uncertainty. I do not know, she said softly. That is the first honest answer you have given me in weeks. 2 weeks passed after I served the papers. She stopped trying to negotiate or bargain. Instead, she got quiet, really quiet. I would find her sitting at the kitchen table in the morning, just staring out the window with a cup of coffee growing cold in her hands. Are you okay? I asked one morning. She looked up as if she had forgotten I was there. I have been thinking. About what? About what you said. About the 28 things. She turned to face me completely. I keep going over them in my head, and I realize I do not remember when most of these things started bothering me. Like, when did I decide you were too logical? When did I decide you were not romantic enough? I poured some coffee and sat down. What do you think? I think maybe I have been collecting complaints for years without really thinking about whether they were fair complaints. Take number 15, she continued. Your communication style. What exactly is wrong with your communication style? Tell me. It was on your list. That is just it. I wrote it down because it sounded like something that could be a problem. But when I really think about it, you are actually pretty clear when you talk. You say what you think. You do not play games or drop hints. Maybe that is not a flaw. She was quiet for a moment, then said, I think I have been comparing you to an ideal husband in my head. Someone who does not exist. Where did this ideal husband come from? I do not know. Books, movies, other people's marriages that look perfect from the outside. My friend at work always talks about how her husband surprises her with flowers and writes her little notes. So, I decided you should do that too. Did you ever ask me to do those things? I just expected you to guess, and when you did not, I got frustrated and put it on the list. I studied her face. She looked tired, as if she had been working on something difficult. What else have you been thinking about? About what you said about partnership, about equals. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I do not think I have been treating you like an equal. I think I have been treating you like someone who was supposed to make me happy. And when you did not make me happy the way I expected, I blamed you for it. This was new territory. In 15 years of marriage, I had never heard her question her own expectations before. Why do you think you did that? Honestly, I think I believed marriage was supposed to work a certain way. And if it was not working that way, it was because you were not doing your part right. It never occurred to me that maybe my idea of how marriage was supposed to work was the problem. She stood up and went to the window, looking out at the backyard. I called my mom yesterday. Yeah, I told her about the divorce, about the list. I read her some of the things I wrote. What did she say? She was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, Sweetheart, it sounds like you are trying to redesign your husband. When I tried to explain that I was just trying to improve our marriage, she said, Marriage is not about improving people. It is about accepting people and building a life together. She turned back to me. My mom has been married to my dad for 42 years. If anyone knows about marriage, it is her. And she essentially told me I was doing it wrong. What else did she say? She asked me if I would want Dad to make a list of 28 things wrong with her. I said it was different, that I was trying to help. She said, help what? Help him become someone else. That is when I realized that is exactly what I was trying to do. Over the next few days, she continued to have her moments of clarity. She would be doing something ordinary like folding laundry or making dinner and suddenly stop and look at me with this expression of dawning realization. I just remembered something. She said one evening as we were watching TV. Last year, when you wanted to take that fishing trip with your brother, I made a huge deal out of it. I said you were selfish for wanting to spend a weekend away from me. I remember. But I go out with my friends all the time. I have book club, girls' nights, shopping trips. I never asked if those things bothered you. I just assumed they were fine because they were things I wanted to do. They were fine. I want you to have friends and interests. But I did not extend the same consideration to you. I acted like your desire for time with your brother was a personal rejection of me. She muted the TV and turned to face me. That is not fair, is it? No, it is not. And number 7 on the list about you withdrawing during conflicts, I wrote that you need to stop withdrawing. But I never thought about why you withdraw. Maybe you withdraw because I do not actually want to resolve conflicts. Maybe I just want to be right. She was starting to see patterns that had been invisible to her before. It was like watching someone put on glasses for the first time and realize the world had been blurry all along. I have kept score, she said a few days later, not just with the list, but for years. Every time you did something that did not match what I thought you should do, I filed it away as evidence that you were not trying hard enough. Evidence of what? For the case I was building that you were the problem in our marriage. I realize now that I was always building that case. Every argument we had, every time I got frustrated, it was always about what you were doing wrong, never about what I might be doing wrong. One morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook, writing. What is that? I asked. I am trying to write down the things I have done wrong in our marriage. Not ways I could be nicer to you, but actual things I have done that were unfair or hurtful. She showed me the notebook. She had already filled 3 pages. I criticized your family, but got defensive when you had an opinion on mine. I made major decisions about our social calendar without asking if you wanted to do those things. I assumed you should know what I wanted without me having to tell you. Then I got mad when you could not read my mind. I interrupted you constantly, but complained that you did not listen to me. The list went on. It was a real accounting of real problems, not superficial politeness issues. It is hard to look at, she said. I do not like seeing myself this way. That is what accountability feels like. Is this how you felt when you read my list about you? Worse, because your list was mostly about personality traits and preferences. This list is about behavioral choices you have made repeatedly over years. She put down her pen. I owe you a real apology. Okay. I am sorry I spent 15 years treating you like a project instead of a partner. I am sorry I made our marriage about fixing you instead of building something together. I am sorry I never questioned if my expectations were fair or if my behavior was contributing to our problems. She took a breath. And I am sorry it took you asking for a divorce for me to see all this. You should not have had to go to that extreme to make me look at myself. Honestly, it was the first real apology I had heard her make in years. Maybe ever. I appreciate that, I said. Does it change anything? I looked at her carefully. She was not asking with hope or desperation. She was asking like someone who genuinely wanted to know the answer, whatever it was. I do not know yet, I said honestly, but it is the first conversation we have had in weeks that feels like we are talking to each other instead of talking past each other. 3 months later, we were sitting in a coffee shop in the downtown area. Not for any special reason, just because she had asked if I wanted to grab coffee and talk. The divorce papers were still sitting and signed on my desk at home. What do you think about therapy? She asked, stirring sugar into her latte. Depends on why we are going. Not to fix you, not to teach me techniques to manage you better, but to learn how to actually be married to each other instead of the people we thought we should be. I considered that. That sounds different. It is. I found someone who specializes in helping couples rebuild after major relationship breakdowns. She does not do the let us improve communication thing. She does the let us see if you actually want to be married to each other thing. And you want to find out? I want to find out if the person I am becoming can be married to the person you are, instead of trying to turn you into someone I think I want to marry. We had been having conversations like this for weeks. Real conversations where she asked questions instead of making demands, where she listened to answers instead of preparing rebuttals. I threw away the original list, she said, but I wrote a new one. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, and for a moment, I felt that familiar tension. Then she handed it to me. There was one point. Learn to be married to my real husband instead of my imaginary one. That is it. That is it. Every other problem we have comes from that one. If I can learn to do that, we might have something worth saving. If I cannot, then you were right to ask for a divorce. I folded the paper back up. And if we do this therapy and find out we can make it work, what happens to the divorce papers? We tear them up. But not until we are both sure we want to be married to who we really are, not who we think we should be. And if we find out we cannot make it work, then we sign them and end this like friends who tried everything and gave each other an honest chance. 6 months later, we were in our kitchen making dinner together. Truly together, not with one person cooking while the other sat at the table scrolling on their phone. How was your day? She asked, chopping vegetables. Good, busy. Patterson finally approved the Whitaker project. She smiled. The one you have been working on for 3 months? That is the one. I am proud of you. It was a small moment, but it represented something bigger. She was proud of me for succeeding at work, not frustrated that work sometimes kept me late. She was interested in my day because she cared about my life, not because she was monitoring my mood. How was book club? I asked. Interesting. We are reading this book on marriage, and there is a whole chapter on expectations versus reality. It made me think about us. Positive thoughts. Grateful thoughts. We could have just gotten divorced and spent the rest of our lives thinking the other person was the problem. Instead, we figured out how to actually love being married to each other. The divorce papers were in a shredder bag somewhere, torn up the day we both decided we wanted to try being married for real this time. It was not perfect. We still had disagreements. We still annoyed each other sometimes. But now, when we had problems, we approached them as problems to solve together, not as evidence that one of us was fundamentally flawed. You know what I realized? She said, seasoning the chicken. What? I spent 15 years trying to change you into someone I thought I wanted to marry. Turns out, I actually love being married to you. It just took a near divorce to figure it out. The best worst thing that ever happened to us. She was not wrong. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose something completely before you can find out if it is really worth keeping. Comment. This story really stayed with me. I hope it gave you some space to reflect on your own relationships, too. Standing up for your self-respect is never easy, but it's incredibly important. Real love grows when both people are willing to take responsibility for their own part. True kindness includes being honest without tearing each other down. Healing often begins the moment we stop pretending everything is okay. Sometimes, choosing peace requires us to make hard but necessary choices. You deserve to be loved for who you truly are. Take time to think about the kind of love you want to give and receive in your life. Thank you for watching, and I hope this leaves you feeling clearer and stronger about what really matters.
Thank you for taking the time to watch and support our channel. It truly means a lot to us. Thank you for taking the time to watch and support our channel. It truly means a lot to us.